Happy Monday. Welcome to the Pre-Snap Podcast presented by LineStar, your top NFL player prop bets for both Monday Night Football contests tonight. Alongside Tyler Wiemann, I am Shannon Sommerville. We've got two games to break down today. The Cincinnati Bengals are going up against the Washington Commanders. The Bengals, who would have thought this season they'd be 0-2, still seeking their first win. Meanwhile, the Commanders got their first win last week against the Giants, thanks in part to a lot of Giants mistakes and the fact that they didn't have a kicker. Nonetheless, that's just one of the contests we're looking at tonight. The other one, of course, is going to be the Buffalo Bills going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last time these two teams squared off was in London. This time around, we'll see if Josh Allen has anything to say after that absolute blowout in Thursday Night Football against the Dolphins. Meanwhile, I feel like the Jacksonville Jags have kind of been struggling to find a little bit of identity, but they might be a little sneaky, I guess, better than maybe people are thinking they are. I was kind of looking into some of the, I don't know how else to describe the Jaguars at this point in the season. I think they still need to find some rhythm on their offense. But Tyler, what are your impressions of these two games?
Yeah, I mean, they're interesting games. I don't love a ton of offense, though. I know we have totals of 45.5, 46.5, but it just doesn't strike me as a super offensive slate of games, unfortunately. I think Cincinnati may have some offense, but outside of that, I think all the teams might struggle to kind of move the ball.
Yeah, all right. Well, again, the total is at 45.5, like you mentioned, for that Jacksonville at Buffalo game, and then at 46.5 for Washington at Cincinnati. The Commanders defense hasn't looked good, so will this be the breakout game for Joe Burrow and the Bengals? They've got T. Higgins back in this contest, so that's good news for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But I'm still a little salty, Tyler, about the Bengals because they were my survivor pick week one. Bump. That did not go well for me. But we've got some good prop bets for you regardless. We are using the PropsAI tool in the LineStar app to help us find the best value. So you can check that out if you'd like at LineStarApp.com. And then our picks are available in places like Underdog Fantasy, Sleeper, CHALKBOARD, ParlayPlay. All of those apps are great apps, and we have links below. Just remember to use the promo code LineStar so you can get a nice deposit match. Plus, you can also get one free month of LineStar so you can check out that PropsAI tool for yourself. Remember, LineStarApp.com is where you can find that. All right, let's get into the picks. First, we're going to give out two picks from the PropsAI tool and using that LineStar app's tool to help you find the best value in the prop market. And then Tyler and I will give our best picks. Now, when we each give our picks, if we go 2-0, both Tyler and I, one randomly selected commenter will win $50. To enter into this contest, all you need to do is do us a huge favor right now. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and then comment below, and you're in it to win it. If we win, we will give out some money on the next show, $50 to the winner next Monday night. So make sure to tune in next week. Hopefully we'll be setting off some money guns and giving out some money to a randomly selected commenter. Let's get into it for this week. First, we're going to start off with the Cincinnati Bengals and their running back, Zack Moss, over 51.5 rushing yards. Now, I know the Bengals haven't quite had a great rushing game so far this season, but it could come tonight. LineStar's projection is 53, the consensus projection all the way just almost to 60 for Zack Moss tonight. Yes, he only had 44 week one. He only had 34 week two. But what we like to see is that he has played 73% of Bengals offensive snaps this season. That is 8th highest among running backs. And when you look at their opponent, the Commanders, they are 18th in rushing yards to opposing running backs. When you look at their opponents over the past 2 weeks, you had Devin Singletary put up 95 last week. The week before, Bucky Irving had 62. Also, the game script in this one, if it goes the way Vegas thinks it's going to go, which right now they were favored, I guess they're favored by a touchdown. I have seen that move to 7.5 in favor of Cincinnati. So if that's the way things will go, that would mean Cincinnati might be playing with a lead, in which case they might run the ball a little more. So just that game script alone, I kind of am leaning towards Zack Moss over here. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, this is an interesting situation. In the offseason, everybody started thinking Chase Brown was like a 1B to Zack Moss's 1A, but it's just not what we've seen. Week one, 65% of the snaps for Zack Moss. Week two, that jumped to 80% of the snaps for Zack Moss. Moss is their RB1. He is going to get a lot of work, and Washington Commanders, I almost went back to their old name there. their defense is just awful. I think that Moss is going to have plenty of opportunities to get over this line. I like the spot for Moss to get over.
All right, and the next pick from LineStar, we're looking at Jayden Daniels, quarterback for the Washington Commanders, but under on 197.5 passing yards in this one. And this is actually a pretty big edge in terms of the comparison between LineStar's projection and what that line is, because LineStar's projection is just 177 for the rookie quarterback in this one. He had 226 last week against the Giants, 184 against the Bucs week 1. But the Bengals have been really good at eliminating the passing game from their opponent. In fact, allowing just 128 passing yards per game this season. Week 1 against Jacoby Brissett, he had just 121. And Patrick Mahomes, just 151. The Bengals have a good secondary. So my assessment of the way this might play out tonight is that Jayden Daniels obviously is a dual threat quarterback. So if the pass isn't there, he's just going to run the ball. So I kind of lean with LineStar's projection here and the under. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jayden Daniels has faced the Buccaneers and the Giants, and his top passing game right now is 226 versus the Bucs, who is a pass funnel D. They're a solid defense, but they're not exceptional to protecting the pass. He only had 184. Bengals have been extremely tough versus the pass so far, so I think Jayden is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, the only, I guess, concern you might have in this situation is if it just doesn't go the way things are intended and they get that run game really off to a great start and that opens up the passing game and they're a little playing from behind and trying to catch up to the Bengals in this one. That's my only concern with the passing yards, but I still think the value is with the under here, especially where LineStar has it projected at 177. So I like the value with the under. Now it is time for Tyler and I to give our prop picks for tonight's contest. Where are you headed, Tyler?
I am going with Brenton Strange over 23.5 yards. I also like the 2.5 receptions if you want, but because I have to pick one for this, I'll go with the yards. Bills, frankly, have been a very tough defense to wide receivers. Thomas, Davis, Kirk, all are at the very bottom of our matchup tool. And then with Evan Ingram out, Strange stepped up to played 68% of the snaps. He had 6 targets, 61 or 65 yards. He pretty much just took over that Evan Ingram role. And the Bills, meanwhile, 2 tight ends are allowing 51.5 yards and 7 receptions a game. So I like the spot. I think tight end is the spot that the Jaguars could kind of push a little bit in this matchup.
Yeah, the Bills are dealing with some injuries on their defense, so they could kind of take advantage and exploit some of those. Trevor Lawrence likes to push the ball down the field, so I like the spot here for Strange, especially given that injury news to Evan Ingram. That's going to be a huge loss for them. Another one I was looking at, Tyler, with LineStar's projection doesn't like it, so I don't know if I'll go all in on it, but Brian Thomas was an intriguing one as well as a passing option for Lawrence tonight. But for my pick, I am going to the Cincinnati Bengals and their wide receiver too, who's back tonight, T. Higgins, over 45.5 receiving yards. LineStar's projection 52. The consensus projection is with us also at around 50. Last season, T was averaging 54.7 yards per game, and now he's going up against a Washington Commanders defense through the first 2 weeks have been awful. They've given up the 5th most yards to wide receivers, and they've faced some. They faced Daniel Jones last week. Baker Mayfield, he's pretty good, but look at the wide receivers that they faced. Godwin had 83. Malik Neighbors had 127. Slayton had 33. And T. Higgins, his size, he's taller than all of those receivers. So I think he has a little height advantage in this one, especially considering the fact, so he's 6'4", 219. He's taller than any of the Commanders starters in the secondary in this one. And he's a real vertical threat. And so I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase isn't there. T. Higgins is just as good. Great catch. Doesn't drop the ball a whole lot. And what he lacks in the speed, he definitely makes up for in those contested catches, his physical nature, and just his overall athleticism. So I really like T. Higgins to bounce back. He had been dealing with a hamstring injury, but he is no longer on the injury report. So T. Higgins over 45.5 receiving yards. That's too low for a guy at the caliber of as T. Higgins. So I like Higgins for tonight. but hopefully Joe Burrow in that passing game, starts to put it together a little bit and has a nice showing against a weak Commanders defense so far we've seen. I think it's going to take a while for this Commanders defense to kind of settle in. So I'm still leaning with Joe Burrow and the Bengals in this one. What do you think about T. Higgins and maybe some of those receivers prospect from a daily fantasy perspective?
Yeah, it's an interesting spot for Cincinnati for sure. I think that they need to get Burrow going a little bit. I don't think they're going to have problems moving the ball on the Commanders. And then T. Higgins, in particular, he said he was 100% like earlier this week, and he's totally off the injury report. So I know the preseason injury is probably part of the reason why this line is a little low.
Right.
But I don't think I would really worry about it too much.
All right, so those are our picks. Again, if Tyler and I both go 2-0 on our picks, one randomly selected commenter will win $50. So what we want is for T. Higgins to go over 45.5 receiving yards and Brenton Strange to go over 2.5 receptions or 23.5 yards. Those are our picks for tonight in our Monday night contest. Remember, you can tell us if you'd like Underdog Fantasy, Sleeper, Chalkboard, Parlay Play. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below for your chance at that $50. Now it's time for touchdown calls of the day. Tyler, where are you headed for an anytime touchdown between the two contests we got going tonight?
I'm going back to Brenton Strange plus 275. I just like the value in this spot. Strange played 68% of the snaps. He had 6 targets. It was a 22.2% of the target share. He essentially just took over for Evan Ingram. And now tight end has the best matchup for the Jaguars versus the Bills. So with that kind of value, I just want to stay there.
All right, I'm going to T. Higgins plus 175 for a touchdown tonight. When you look back at the Commanders and the receivers they've played, Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors both caught touchdown passes last week. Then the week before, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both had touchdowns week 1. So this could be a situation where both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins find the end zone tonight. But I like the price tag here for T. Higgins at plus 175 for a guy who had 5 touchdowns last season. But keep in mind, he only played 12 games. So half of his games he scored in a touchdown, so I like his odds tonight. We're talking about a wide receiver who's 6'4", who's got a height advantage in this one against all of those Commanders defenders in the secondary. So I like him, especially being a nice deep threat for Joe Burrow tonight against a weaker secondary. So we're going to go with T. Higgins for an anytime touchdown plus 175. I like the odds for T in his first game back after dealing with that hamstring injury. So looking forward to seeing a fully operational Bengals offense now with Jamar, with T. Higgins. I think it's going to be a lot different. When you've got those two threats in there, I think this changes the game on offense for the Bengals. So those are our touchdown calls. Let us know who you think is finding the end zone tonight. Drop it in the comments. The comment will enter you into that prop bets contest. All right, now let's talk about these games and the spreads. Jacksonville at Buffalo is minus 5.5 in favor of the Buffalo Bills. What do you think, Tyler? Are you going to be jumping through tables tonight, or what are we doing? Are Bills fans going to be jumping through
Bills
tables?
Mafia. I know. I think Bills win, but I hate that 5.5 line. I think that's probably a very good line, and I might have to go Jags points, but Bills line.
Okay. All right. I feel like Trevor Lawrence, though, has kind of had the Bills number. I'm a little wary. I feel like even though Buffalo has looked good, especially last week, I feel like they also were the beneficiary of a little bit of luck. The Miami Dolphins, they lost to a Tagovailoa in the third quarter in that one. And they were able to move the ball down the field. They just weren't able to kind of capitalize in the end zone with some of those scores. So it's hard for me to kind of assess this one, but I feel like all weekend, what have we seen in the NFL is that favorites just, I don't know, they just haven't been able to produce, or at least maybe just the Chiefs. But it's hard for me to back Buffalo here at 5.5 against a pretty, I think, sneaky good Jacksonville team. So I'm going to roll with the Jags in this one to cover 5.5. Next game, Washington at Cincinnati. This line has moved. I think it's 7.5 now. Last checked was 7. But what's your take on this line here for Cincinnati?
I mean, Washington is just pretty bad. It's pretty hard for me to pick Washington at all. However, I mean, Cincinnati lost to New England. They played KC tough, but I don't know. I both of these teams, we just need more information on. I feel like I
Yeah.
personally just wouldn't bet them. I think Cincinnati wins the game, but 7.5 is a lot in the NFL.
Yeah, especially after what we've seen over this weekend. I mean, the Rams beating the 49ers was just kind of a crazy one to me. But when you look at kind of Cincinnati, as you mentioned, the Patriots, and I think that's kind of the style. If I were the Washington Commanders, I'd try to employ against this Bengals team. You don't want Joe Burrow with the ball in his hand. You want to run the ball and lean into your rushing quarterback in this one. So if they can do that and kind of slow down the pace, take the ball away from Joe Burrow and that dynamic offense, I think they've got a chance to keep it at a hand in this one. So in which case, I would lean towards Washington in this one to be able to cover. 7.5 points is a lot of points in the NFL. I think they cover. It's hard for me to see any scenario in which they're able to win. Cincinnati is desperate for a win right now, and I think they're going to come out and play really, really hungry and try to get this win because, quite frankly, they've got to. I mean, they just let one slip through their fingers against the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to want this one. They're going to bounce back today, I think. So I like the Bengals. I just don't know if they're going to win by more than a touchdown, essentially. If I were betting, which I'm personally not betting the sides in this one, but if I was, I'd probably take the points with the Commanders in this one. That's kind of the way I would play it. But hey, if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Again, a comment enters you into our prop bets contest. But either way, 2 interesting games for today. I feel like we're at the point in the season where we're still kind of like learning teams' identities. If you had told me earlier before the season started that the Bengals would potentially come into a contest 0-2, I wouldn't have believed you. Craziness, but hey, that's the NFL, and it's an any given Sunday league. As we've seen over the past weekend, it's been a pretty wild start to the season, which we love to see. But that's why we're leaning into the prop bet market for today, that's for sure. All right, good luck. Let me know if you guys have any locks in the comments. We are all trying to help each other out and beat the books. So if you've got any great picks for tonight, make sure to drop them in the comments. Good luck in all of your prop betting endeavors. Also check out our MLB props as well, because this week is going to be wild with some wild card clinch scenarios. We got some good picks for you on that as well. So stay tuned for that. Good luck. Let's win some money. We'll see you next time.